Hello there, my lovely friends. It is Halloween. I'm filming this at 7 o'clock in the morning. Usually I would have already filmed this, but my husband's home. If you hear things in the background, I promise I'm not being haunted. Most of you know I have children, 3. Only 2 of them are home right now. I also have 3 dogs, a cat, and a husband. So if you hear or see things, I promise it's not ghosts. It's just things and people that live in my house on the regular. But welcome. If you are new, welcome back. If you are not, thank you for joining me. Today is the last day of Vlogtober. I would love to be able to say that I'm sad it's over, but I am ready to take a little break. But to round it out, boy, do I have a true crime case for y'all. Now, some of y'all thought when I said on live streams or in videos that I was going to do a case where a guy killed his kid with a pixie stick, y'all thought I was joking. And I, however, am not. So, you know, let me take this off because I'm a little sweaty. They always, tell you, and you remember your parents always say, oh, let me check your candy, make sure nobody put razors or drugs or anything else like that in there. Well, this case that I'm about to talk to you about is sort of like that, except for the person checking the candy was the person contaminating the candy. So, let's jump into it. In 1974, Ronald O'Brien was 30 years old, and he was married to, I'm gonna say her name is Danine. It's spelled D-A-Y-N-E-N-E. So I'm gonna assume that's what it is. They had 2 children. Their son Timothy, who was 8, and their daughter Elizabeth, who was 5. They lived in a middle-class suburb of Houston, Texas, called Deer Park. He was an optician, and he served as a deacon at a Baptist church where he also sang in the choir and oversaw the parochial buses, like the buses that go and pick people up and bring them to and from church. Anyone who knew him would describe him as a model citizen. A pastor at his church even described him as being a good Christian man and an above-average father. But that was not reality. Reality was O'Brien, in the past 10 years, had been fired from had held 21 optician positions where he had been fired from each and every one of them for either negligence or fraudulent behavior. And he was on the verge. In the fall of 1974, he was on the verge from being fired from his current position because they thought he was stealing from the company. And he was employed at Texas State Optical. And they suspected him of stealing money. O'Brien's take-home pay, now keep in mind this is 1974, his take-home pay was $150 a week, so that is $600 a month. It was barely enough to cover food and rent for him and his family. Later, it was also discovered that he had over $100,000 worth of debt. Many bank loans had been defaulted on, and his car was on the verge of being repossessed. And whether or not it was out of greed or desperation, he concocted a very sinister and very incomprehensible, twisted plan to alleviate his financial troubles and maybe even allow him to live a more comfortable lifestyle. His plan would be carried out on Halloween of 1974. The night of October 31st, 1974. Started out like any fairly normal Halloween night would. They had dinner at a family friend Jim's house, and with his wife and his 2 kids. You know, and O'Brien wasn't really a like very enthused about Halloween, really, but this particular year he was very eager to take his children trick-or-treating. Jim Bates and his 2 children joined Ronald O'Brien and his children trick-or-treating on their Halloween adventures. They were going around house to house, knocking on doors. Kids were getting candy and treats and having a swell time. And then they came to a house, and they knocked on the door, and nobody answered, and so they were like, okay, they're not handing out candy, or they're not home, or they're out with their kids, or whatever, and they left. Well, O'Brien kind of fell behind the group a little bit, and about a minute or 2 after, when he finally caught back up with the group, and he was wielding 5 of the giant pixie sticks. Now, if you don't know what pixie sticks are, they're like little straw-like tubes that have like a powdery candy in them. It's kind of sweet and kind of sour. It would be kind of like almost if you mixed a packet of Kool-Aid with sugar and ate it. He claimed that the neighbor that they were just at, who didn't answer their door, was actually handing out candy, and they were handing out very nice, expensive treats, you know, kind of like the king-size candy bars everybody goes for on Halloween, kind of like that. They arrived home, and I guess Ronald O'Brien had been holding on to these pixie sticks the whole rest of the time, and so when they got back to the O'Brien house, he handed his 2 children and Jim's 2 children each one of the pixie sticks, and then a random kid had knocked on the door to trick-or-treat, and he handed the other kid this pixie stick. Before bed, O'Brien, like any other parent, tells their kid, okay, you can have 1 piece of candy. Timothy decided that he wanted the giant pixie stick. So, you know, they're all excited. They're deciding what kind of candy they have. He picks the giant pixie stick. The daughter, I don't know, probably picked like a Hershey's bar or, you know, something like that. It didn't really say. When Timothy opened the pixie stick and ate it, he complained that it was kind of bitter and didn't taste so well, so O'Brien gave him a cup of Kool-Aid to wash it down. According to O'Brien, they went through their nightly routine. He tucked in his daughter, kissed her goodnight, read her a story, whatever they did for bedtime. Then he went, and it was Timothy's turn, and he, you know, tucked him in, kissed him goodnight, read him a story, said their prayers, whatever it is that they did. And he says about 30 seconds after leaving the room, Timothy started screaming and crying, "Daddy, Daddy, my stomach hurts." So he then leads Timothy into the bathroom, where he says that, where later he would tell police that Timothy was in the bathroom vomiting, convulsing, and gasping, and then he just all of a sudden went limp, which is then when O'Brien called 911, and within an hour of eating this pixie stick, Timothy O'Brien died en route to the hospital. And of course, as you know, when things like that happen, a child anybody really just mysteriously drops dead after vomiting and convulsing and stuff. Autopsies are done, so Timothy's body was brought to the morgue for his autopsy, and the medical examiner recalled that he smelt like an aroma of almonds coming from Timothy's mouth. Now, if you're not aware, cyanide gives off the smell of almonds. So the medical examiner, suited up just in case, because cyanide is very poisonous. even if you just inhale it, touch it, anything like that, it can kill you. So he suited up to perform this autopsy, and the autopsy did confirm that Timothy did, in fact, ingest cyanide. But not only did he ingest some cyanide, enough to kill him, he actually had amounts in his system large enough to kill 3 grown men. So the police very quickly went to O'Brien's daughter, Jim Bates' daughter, or kids, they didn't say whether they were boys or girls, but went to their kids and found the other kid that they had given the pixie stick to. Luckily, all 4 of them had not been eaten or opened or anything of the sort. And when they tested these, it was founded that all 4 of the uneaten pixie sticks, 2 inches of the powder had been poured out and replaced with granules of cyanide. After finding this out, wanting to know what house they supposedly got these pixie sticks from, investigators had O'Brien and Jim take them on the exact route, showing them every house they stopped at while they were trick-or-treating. O'Brien gave conflicting accounts on which house had given him the poison pixie sticks. Now, I don't know how familiar any of y'all are with procedures and protocols when it comes to investigating homicides and assaults and things of that nature, but usually it is protocol that the people closest to the victims usually become the first suspects and need to be ruled out first and foremost. So, following protocol, police start looking into O'Brien, and what's going on in their life. Are there any stressors? Is there any history of abuse or neglect or anything of this sort anywhere in the household? And they didn't find any history of abuse or neglect or anything of that nature, but what they did find was the financial situation. That he was $100,000 in debt, his car was getting ready to be repossessed, he was about to lose his job, the defaulted bank loans, they found all that. But what they also found was that O'Brien had taken out multiple life insurance policies on his children. And so that kind of prompted them to, okay, let's search the house. Now, in the search of the house, they found they called it adding tape, which is basically, back in the day, it was a calculator that had the spool of receipt tape on it, and you would calculate things and it would print it, They found a piece of that had the amount of all the bills totaled up. Now, coincidence or not, the total bill amount was almost the exact amount that O'Brien stood to get from his children's all of his children's life insurance policies. And they started to dig even deeper, and they found that, through call logs and, to figure out where the cyanide had come from and where it was purchased at, they were contacting, chemical companies and things like that. And come to find out, O'Brien, sorry, I keep calling him Brian. His name is Ronald, but we're calling him by his last name. It turns out O'Brien had called multiple of these chemical companies asking where he could get cyanide, and even jokingly asking how much it would take to kill somebody. And then also, whether it was in the same search that they found paper with the bill totals on it or in a separate search. It didn't say, but they did find a pocket knife that had residue from the pixie sticks on it. Police then stated that this then suggested that this knife was used to open these pixie sticks and contaminate them. And O'Brien did a top-notch acting job playing the grieving father. But he continued to maintain his innocence. He didn't do it. But after failing a polygraph test, he was arrested on November 7th, 1974, and charged with the murder of his son. The former district attorney who worked on this case, Clyde DeWitt, is quoted by A&E True Crime, who did a piece on this story. I'll have it linked down below, saying, and this is a direct quote, "I am not able to imagine a crime more comprehensible, more reprehensible than someone killing his own child for money." So, on June 5th, 1975, after less than an hour of deliberation by the Harris County jury, O'Brien was convicted of murder and sentenced to death. Now, back then, that's when kind of all the death penalty activists and stuff were really working to, get rid of it and say that it wasn't humane. And so O'Brien had a lot of room to appeal. And boy, did he appeal. Multiple times. He even appealed all the way to the Supreme Court twice. After exhausting all his appeals, O'Brien was executed by lethal injection on March 31st, 1984. 10 years. 10 years after killing his son. Now, I'm sorry, but whether you agree with the death penalty or not, to live an extra 10 years, whether it was in prison or not, after killing an innocent child, let alone your innocent child, is too long. His last words were, and I quote, he was executed at the Texas State Penitentiary in Huntsville. His final words were, and I quote, "What is about to transpire in a few moments is wrong. I would forgive all who have taken part in any way in my death." He never confessed to his crimes. He maintained his innocence until his last breath. But, sorry, buddy. All the evidence points to you. So, I don't really think you're that innocent. He is now known by two nicknames. One is the man who killed Halloween, and the second is the Candyman. Of course, this caused some hysteria. People didn't take their kids out trick-or-treating much anymore for a while. I mean, I don't blame him. Blame them. I couldn't imagine. Just the thought of, and I mean, just imagine, his daughter could have died, his friend's two kids could have died, that random trick-or-treater could have died, and he had no remorse, he didn't care. He didn't care whose life he took in the process. He was so worried about digging himself out of his money hole that he completely disregarded the life of his children, of his friends' children, and other children in his community. And it's said that he chose this method and that there were 5 pixie sticks because at the time he didn't know that he was going to go trick-or-treating with his friend Jim. But he thought, okay, I'll give my kids 2, and then I will give the other 3 out to trick-or-treaters, and then you know, it'll kind of be like it would deflect suspicion off of him onto some random community member. Now listen, guys. I hope and I pray there's not a doubt in my mind that this man was responsible. I don't care how much he proclaimed his innocence. There's no doubt in my mind that he is responsible for this. The stress of not being able to provide for your family, as we all know, if you're a true crime junkie like me, family annihilators, that's usually what pushes them over the edge, is the stress of not being able to provide what they want for their family, failing in their career, and all that kind of stuff. So there's not a doubt in my mind that he did this. So I pray that how old would his 5-year-old daughter be? In 1974, she was 5. My mom was born in 74, so she's like 52, 53 at this point. 52. So I hope that she was able to move on and live a healthy, happy life. I hope that his wife did not stick by him. I didn't see anything about that, but I just pray that she did not. I pray that she let him rot until they executed him. I don't even know how they had the chance, because once they tried to say that he had suspicion, and my wheels started turning in my head, I don't know if the police would have a chance to incarcerate my husband. I'm just kidding. I would never. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed this. Happy Halloween. Hope this was spooky enough for your Halloween needs. Yeah. I love you guys. I'm praying for you. Stay safe out there tonight if you're taking your kids trick-or-treating. Stay safe if you're going out for Halloween to like a bar or a club or a Halloween party. And never leave your drink unattended. Never leave your kids unattended. Never go anywhere alone. Stay safe. Trust no one. I love you. And I will see you guys next time, which won't be tomorrow in a video because I'm probably going to take a few days off. Bye-bye.